This is the Locked On Jets podcast here on this Sunday evening. I'm your host, John B. from GangGreenNation.com, here today to break down a wild New York Jets victory. The Jets beat the Giants 13-10 in overtime at MetLife Stadium. The Jets improved their record to 4-3 on the season, and believe it or not, this team is on a 3-game winning streak. A game that frankly seemed lost with less than 30 seconds left, but the Jets in 2 plays go 58 yards to get into field goal range. Greg Zuerlein kicks the field goal as time expires in regulation. And then the Jets put together a drive in overtime to win it. Zuerlein, again, adds a field goal. I don't even know what to say after a win like this. I feel like a win like this tends to be very controversial in the fan base because there are people who are going to be happy that the team won. There are also going to be people who are unhappy because there was a lot to not like about the Jets' performance. If you know me, you know I tend to be on the more positive side because to me, a win's a win in the NFL. You know, you only get 17 games. They're not all going to be pretty. In fact, sometimes you have to figure out how to win when you're not at your best. And I think about an analogy from baseball, actually, a different sport, but there's an old manager in baseball, Buck Showalter, who most recently managed the New York Mets. But back in the 90s, he was the manager of the Yankees, the other baseball team in New York. And the Yankees acquired this outfielder, Ruben Sierra, and Buck Showalter did not like Ruben Sierra's approach at the plate. And the general manager, Gene Michael, told Showalter, you know, if you don't like watching him, just look down when he's at the plate, don't watch him, and look at the stats at the end of the season. And that's something I think about after a win like this, because nobody's going to say this was a pretty game. Nobody's going to say this was a great performance, especially on offense by the New York Jets. I think actually the defense and special teams unit should be pretty happy with how they played. But it was an ugly offensive performance. I mean, quite frankly, if the Jets play this way on offense 20 times, they may lose 19 games, but it doesn't matter. You know, it didn't have to look pretty. In the NFL, we are in the wins and losses business, and the New York Jets found a way to win. And look, they were helped there by the Giants. Brian Daboll made some incomprehensible coaching decisions along the way, including letting Graham Gano go out there and kick a field goal on 4th and short with less than a half minute left. But you know what? I've watched the Jets lose a lot of horrible games through the years, and I'm never going to apologize for a win. And beyond that, this was a key win for the Jets. First of all, this win counts for the rest of the season. You bank another win, you're 4-3, you're on a 3-game winning streak. But beyond that, there was a point where it seemed like the Jets were going to lose. I would have to imagine if you look at the win probabilities through this game, it was probably like in the high 90% the Giants were going to win, with a half minute left to go in this game. And the storylines from this game would be so different. You can be unhappy with how the Jets played on offense, but the bottom line is that the biggest storyline from this game is going to be the Jets won, and they got to 4-3, and they got another victory, and they banked another win as they try and make the playoffs this year. If the Jets had lost this game, well, storyline number one would be about the offense, but it would really, first among that would be the play of Zach Wilson, who was frankly terrible in this game for the first 59 and a half minutes, and then made some incredible throws to get the Jets into field goal range, and then made a couple big plays in the overtime period. This was not a winning quarterback performance by any stretch of the imagination most weeks by Zach Wilson. You usually can't wait till there's 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter to start making plays. But you know what? We're not going to worry about that because now the story is going to be Zach Wilson's the hero. And I think that can have a psychological impact on a quarterback. He's not going to have to listen all week about how he messed the game up. It would be all over the media. You'd be hearing, "Oh, Zach Wilson, is he the answer?" Now we're going to hear about how Zach Wilson's the hero, and I think that's an important thing for Zach Wilson, number one. But beyond that, I don't know how this would have played with the defense after they played. They had a couple boneheaded penalties on the one touchdown drive the Giants had, but defense otherwise dominated the Giants on offense. You don't know what the dynamics would have been in the locker room. But beyond that, if the Jets had lost this game, it would have felt like, I was thinking like as at the point where I thought the Jets were going to lose the game, all I could think of was that it kind of felt like 6 weeks worth of quality football were going down the drain. Like, it's like they fought so hard to survive those first 6 weeks. We knew they had to get through those first 6 weeks with 500. And then you lose to the Giants, and it feels like you just have the air taken out of your sails. And it's not always going to be pretty in this league. You're not always going to be thrilled with how your team gets to a win. The important thing is not that necessarily that you play a beautiful brand of football every single week. The important thing is just figuring out how to end up with more points than your opponent. So I understand, listen, I have concerns about this offense going forward, especially we're talking about all the injuries on the offensive line. I have concerns about Zach Wilson's play. I don't think he can wait 59 and a half minutes to start playing well and have that being a sustainable recipe for winning. But at the end of the day, you can debate these things. You can come away from a victory not being thrilled with everything about the Jets' performance. But This certainly beats the alternative, because I think about the alternate universe where the Jets lost this game. I think about how ugly this week would have been for this football team. And, there's probably going to be a lot of talk about the Jets just figuring out ways to win. Maybe there's something to that, but more than anything else, sometimes a loss like this can set you on a very bad path. And it became about avoiding a really bad loss. This would have been a horrible loss for this team. I mean, they would have lost if they, the Giants did, I think, completed a pass or two in overtime, but the Jets were on the verge of losing a game where they did not allow a completion in the entire second half. That's the type of loss that can set you on a very bad path. Avoiding that and getting a win instead, I don't care how it looks, you got to be happy with that. You got to be happy with that on some level. You can say that there are things that we got to fix. That's absolutely true. It's absolutely fair. But you know what? The important thing is getting a win. Now, here on the Locked On Jets podcast, we're going to talk about some of the heroes of this win. There were a number of players. In fact, I think 2 of the 3 units were really good for the Jets in this game. We'll talk about the heroes as we continue this Sunday edition of Locked On Jets. This episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you with players who are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. Well, I don't need to tell you about Garrett Wilson. He was one of the heroes of this game for the Jets. Garrett and Breece Hall were the 2 guys who provided the Jets almost all of their big plays. And coming off this game, he's going to face the Chargers in Week 9. You can start spreading the news. Garrett's going to put up big numbers against the Chargers secondary next week as the Jets look to win their 4th straight game. Garrett's a great talent, and the Jets are back to using him as a dominant number 1 receiver. Look for him to keep coming through with his best all-around game yet in fantasy in 2023. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is all about each player being a perfect fit. The same goes for your vehicle. And with over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at those prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay's Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. This episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by DoorDash. When you're celebrating a Jets overtime victory, you don't want to have to cook. You just want to be able to sit back and have your food delivered to you. And if you're in the New York area, you should know that the number 1 ordered restaurant on DoorDash last week was Daily Provisions. Danny Mayer's small collection of all-days cafes started with a little bakery and gourmet go-to shop adjacent to his flagship Union Square Cafe in 2017. As he opened each location, Upper West Side, West Village, and Hudson Yards, he curated the shops to meet the needs of the neighborhood. Whether that meant good coffee and pastries, high-quality ingredients to cook from home, loaves of long-fermented sourdough bread with smoked salmon spread, or prepared lunches for events. You can order that. You can order lots of great restaurants on DoorDash. It's the best way to get your food after a Jets victory. And now you can get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 on your first order. Download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms apply. Again, that's 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. It's one word with no space, LOCKED, number 2, number 3. Subject to change, terms apply. This is the Locked On Jets podcast on this Sunday, recapping a Jets overtime victory 13-10 over the Giants. Hey, I got one right on Thursday when I picked this game. I said it would be Jets 13, Giants 10. So for once, I actually nailed the prediction. It was an unbelievable game to watch. Lots of heroes for the New York Jets. In fact, I think 2 of the 3 phases were excellent for the Jets in this game. The defense committed some dumb penalties, especially on the 1 Giants touchdown drive in the second half. But you know what? That was the 1 Giants touchdown drive all game. Those were the only points the Jets gave up all game. Giants had 10 points. 3 of them were gifted on an early fumble in the first quarter, and the Jets defense held the Giants out of the end zone. Jets gave up 1 touchdown all game. I mean, you know something? If the Jets had somehow lost this game, that would have been the story. A lot of people would have been upset with the defense. And listen, they committed a lot of dumb penalties. In fact, the Jets were penalized too much in this game. I know Jets fans are always upset with the officiating. I know Jets fans feel like the officials aren't on their side. Jets committed a lot of penalties in this game. I don't think any of them were unfair. And on the 1 Giants touchdown drive, I mean, a bad penalty on Quincy Williams, a bad penalty on Jermaine Johnson. But you know something? Other than that, the Jets defense was locked down. They dominated the Giants. And I know the Giants had a difficult situation at quarterback. I know the Giants play calling was ridiculous in this game. I mean, if I'm a Giants fan, I'm furious with Brian Daboll over the way he approached this game. And But that's a story for Locked On Giants. We'll let Patricia handle that. The Jets defense came out and played lights out football. But beyond that, and this was another thing that we talked about heading into this game, one of the reasons I liked the Jets in the close game was the special teams. We know Jets special teams have been great all season long. Jets were phenomenal on special teams in this game. Greg Zuerlein made both of his kicks, and they were both pressure kicks. They were both inside 35 yards. So those are, even in pressure situations, you expected to make those kicks, even in bad weather, but he made them. The star of the game for the Jets, and there aren't many games where I say the punter may have been the most valuable player, but Thomas Morstead. In the game where there wasn't much offense, in the game where field position was paramount, Morstead punted 11 times. The Jets forced him to punt 11 times because their offense couldn't get anything going. In the rain, he averaged 48.1 yards on these kicks, and a couple times he pinned the Giants deep. In fact, the Jets' first touchdown was set up by a Morstead punt, because essentially it started a sequence where they pinned the Giants deep in their territory. The Jets forced a quick punt by the Giants back. Jets got the ball in excellent field position, and then in the first quarter, and then Zach Wilson hit Breece Hall, and Breece took the catch 50 yards for a touchdown. That was the Jets' only touchdown in the game. And on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, there were two guys who, to the extent the Jets could do anything on offense, it was typically either Garrett Wilson or Breece Hall. Breece broke that 50-yard touchdown in the first quarter. Garrett Wilson, 7 catches for 100 yards, and a couple of the key catches, the one on the drive that tied the game, another on the drive that won the game. Jets could not generate much out of their passing game in this one, at least the first 59 minutes and 30 seconds. Garrett Wilson really stepped up in this game, and to the extent the Jets had any life on offense, it was in the passing game. It was about him, and it was about Breece, because there was a lot of ugliness on offense. Zach Wilson did not play well. The Jets obviously dealt with a lot of injuries along the offensive line, forced them to reshuffle their line a couple of times. The Jets had to play 3 centers in this game. I mean, one of those centers, when he came into the game, the third center, Xavier Newman, the first exchange between him and Zach Wilson was a fumble that the Jets lost. So there were a lot of issues for the Jets on offense in this game. Allen Lazard had a bunch of drops. Tyler Conklin failed to come up with some catches he could have made. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, the two guys that, to the extent the Jets were kept in this game, these were the two heroes on offense for the Jets. So I think, it's kind of funny because a lot of Jets fans will have negative feelings about this game, but at the end of the day, defense played really well. Special teams played really well. You had two guys on offense play really well. It was enough. May not be enough most weeks, but it was enough to win this one. Anyway, that's all for this special Sunday night recap edition of Locked On Jets. We'll be back tomorrow. This is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets. We have new episodes each day, Monday through Friday through the week, and then bonus episodes like this one as needed. We're going to have our full recap tomorrow. Can't wait to speak with you then. Until Monday, enjoy your night. Enjoy this Jets victory.